Hello everybody and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It is myself George, and today I bring you a very, very special review. This is on the upcoming documentary Light and Magic, to be released on Disney Plus next Wednesday the 27th of July, and I cannot wait to talk about this with you all at home. So if you aren't aware, Light and Magic is a documentary on ILM, the company George Lucas created in 1975, which has gone on to be one of the biggest companies in the industry in regards to visual effects, whether it's puppetry back in the sort of 70s, 80s, 90s, or CGI with today. It's an incredible documentary that I'm going to go over a little bit of details about now. And as I said, it is out next Wednesday, and I'm just going to say this is a must-watch for all, not just Star Wars fans. This is a must-watch for fans of film, for people that enjoy behind-the-scenes content, for people curious about how pioneers have sort of built their way up into the industry, because I have not seen a series like this before. And before I get into some of that, I'm just going to quickly go over the socials for everybody at home. So, if you're watching in the future and you might have seen this documentary, please do comment your thoughts below. As I said, this is a really interesting one. I cannot wait to see what people think. I think this is going to be massive. And if you are new to the channel, if you're wondering, why are you talking about this? Obviously, we're big fans of a lot of the films in these kind of films. Indiana Jones, Spielberg films, Star Wars films, everything in between. There's a lot of stuff on there we've covered in the past and we are technically still covering today. So please hit the subscribe button if you are a fan of the series. And, we want to hear from you as well. So, get the comments going. If you want to comment elsewhere, you can find us on our social medias. That is Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. And we have a link to Redbubble in the description below where you can pick up some of our merch. But as I said, we are here talking Light and Magic. And it's really hard to talk about, to be honest, because it's a documentary. It's based off real life. And these are always so hard to review. It's a 6-episode series. And unfortunately, it's a mini-series. I don't think we're going to get a second season. And that's not a spoiler to say that. But I've got one criticism in the show, and I'll get to that at the end. Because off the top of it, this is one of the best behind-the-scenes things I've ever seen in my life. If you know this channel, you can even see posters behind me. I'm a massive fan of Star Wars. So I've always been a fan of George Lucas. A lot of people, turned on him with the prequel trilogy. A lot of people will say they never turned on him, that he was always right. That wasn't the case. Don't let people lie about that. But for me, I've always loved him, not just as a director, but as a pioneer for the industry. And so many people speak about, Lucas did X, Y, and Z. He's pushed us here. And this is the documentary where you get to witness this firsthand. And it's not just about George Lucas, by the way, but the fact they are interviewing him throughout is really cool, because we don't get to see him much in the media anymore. He might pop up on set of The Mandalorian. You might see him in F1 race on the cameras, but we haven't really had any interviews from him in a while. I'm just going to say off the bat, it was so nice to see him talking about the industry, talking about, creating ILM, whether it's archive footage, new footage. It's really fun to see him back on the scene, and it's something that I hope a lot of, people that do behind the scenes or people that are involved at Lucasfilm can do in the future, because this is a Lucasfilm production, and obviously ILM is a part of Lucasfilm for those unaware. But what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to try and go over some of the episodes without giving anything away. As I said, it's documentary, so it's very hard, but there's 6 episodes, and they're all sort of thematically scened of, ILM started in 1975, we're here in 2022. Now, if you've not seen The Gallery, which is for the Mandalorian show, I'm going to recommend that as an amazing double bill. The Season 1 Gallery, just to be specific, because that's more about ILM. And this is kind of where I'm with it. So the earlier episodes is Lucas forming the company, the production of the earlier Star Wars films, heading through into the 80s, where, you're getting the push of computer slowly coming into it, heading into the 90s, Jurassic Park, and then a sort of jump to where we are today, the rise of digital and all that kind of stuff. So that's a kind of polite synopsis. But what's completely blowing me away with this series, it's 6 episodes. They're just shy of an hour each. I watched 5 of them in one night, and I finished the series the following morning. I could not stop watching this because, as a fan, it was so incredible to see new behind-the-scenes stuff. This is a franchise. I'm going to jump to Star Wars first. This has been a franchise for almost 50 years, 45 years this year. And we're seeing footage we've not seen before. Empire of Dreams is the famous documentary people speak about in 2004, and we got a lot of behind-the-scenes in that. But with this one, we're getting footage that I just didn't know existed. We see clips of the famous rough cut that George Lucas showed to the studio with the World War II planes and the Star Wars sound effects and all that kind of stuff. There's not been a series like this for me as a fan, where I've learned so much more. And what's beautiful, I spoke about George Lucas a lot. a lot of the light is shone on so many of the other people that were around at the time. People that have gone on to have incredible careers in their own respect. And obviously you get modern day interviews with some of, like J.J. Abrams pop up and other people that have worked in it. But, Joe Johnston, let's jump out and pick a name. He's very well known as a director. We get to hear his story from working under Lucas. If you know, he obviously did the storyboards and much more. He speaks about how George Lucas almost funded him to study film and become a director. And it's a really nice documentary in that regards, that we get to see the impact he had behind the scenes. And like many documentaries, that then needs to question, is this just saying XYZ is great? No. This is a documentary on the history of this company. And I don't think I've ever seen one like this before in regards to a visual effects company, because the beauty of ILM, you look at 77, computers weren't around. You couldn't do the effects we have today. We get to see the transition from puppets and practical effects back into CGI, back into digital, and the genius of it is the little hints you have throughout the series, the seeds that George Lucas is plotting that's going to build towards something bigger, which is of course the Star Wars prequels. When you make that jump to digital, it's something he'd been building towards for, I'm not lying, well over a decade, and this documentary does such an incredible way at telling that story. And that's why I couldn't stop watching it, because it just feels like something new. And that's such a silly word to use in review, it feels new. You get a lot of documentaries that just recycle old footage, they reuse old footage, and, yes, there is clips of stuff we've seen before, but when we get to spend time with the ILM staff, talking about them working in the 70s, about the sort of the friendships, the bonds they had, we then get some of the more, not nasty stuff per se, but, when ILM had to move, and not everyone could move with them, not everybody was invited to move with them. We get to see the process, we get to see, who lost out, who didn't work, and that's what makes this series work. It's such a neutral way of just looking at this company from afar. And when you get your big name players that sort of rose up in the 90s, your Doug Changs and so many others, we get to see their story and what pushed them on at a younger age. And it's just an incredible documentary. And as I said, it's hard to review documentaries because obviously it's non-fictional, it's using archive footage. But I've just got to say, for Lucasfilm to fund this and release this all at once, I'm going to add, is honestly one of the best behind the scenes things we're ever going to have with Star Wars. And I will jump back and say it once again, seeing George Lucas talking about the process, we get Steven Spielberg jumping in a fair amount. And you get some amazing stories. Again, this is tidbits from the series, so it's not horrible for me to say now, but you have ILM saying, we began as George Lucas's shop and we had to fill the time between episodes 4 and 5. And it was okay, you can do work for my friends, i.e. your Spielbergs and so many other people. And then we get to see ILM's growth from George Lucas's company to the industrial powerhouse that we have today, that are one of the biggest companies working today in the industry. And it's just amazing to see the process, see how some of that came to be. And as I said, so much archive footage that's never been released before. Indiana Jones, you've got the famous melting scene from the first one. We get such a mighty look at that. We get to see not just how they were created, but you're sort of looking at the director on set and how people are on set with it all. And it's not something we've had before. And that's why it was so thrilling to watch for me, because we spent so much time. They don't just gloss over something. If I'm going to talk about the episodes, and this is my criticism, episodes 1 through to 5 take you up to 1991 with Terminator 2. And it teases episode 6 being about Jurassic Park. And I'm a massive fan of Jurassic Park. We know how important Jurassic Park is for the film industry, what they would do with that. They would go on to make it such an important thing and everybody sort of jumping on that path. This is my criticism, is this should have been a multi-season series. And although that's a criticism, it's also a compliment, because what we see with the first 5 episodes, to me, is unparalleled. I've not seen a deep dive into the industry at that point in such a way. And when you get to episode 6, it feels like, oh no, we've got to finish this. We get Jurassic Park, then it's a jump to digital, the late 90s, the prequels, and then it's straight to The Mandalorian and the Gallery in 2019. And I was really disappointed with that ending, because, as I said, this is one of the best behind-the-scenes shows I've ever seen. And I genuinely feel that this could have been 2 or 3 seasons long. Now, I know Disney Plus has the Imagineering story, which is about Disneyland, and I know that has had multiple seasons. I think there's a Pixar one, I could also be wrong. But seeing this one of ILM is just such a different way. And there are so many things we don't get to see. I'm a massive advocate for motion capture. I've spoke about that a lot on the channel in the past. In the opening credits, it has Davy Jones. And as I said, you get the Star Wars prequel trilogy, then it jumps to the Mandalorian. And there's so much missing, which I was really gutted by. And that's kind of my only issue with it, because the first 5 episodes are some of the best. It is so eye-opening to see what these people have been through, and as well it shows them really pushing the technology at the time. There's a sort of battle of infrastructure of the practical creature shop versus the digital artists coming through, and we get to see the in-house politics that were there in the sort of late 80s coming into the 90s, and it's incredible because we know the way the industry turned. But with that, we also know the way the industry has gone back in the last few years to a blend of both, and we just missed that. And I think it's really a sort of heart-wrenching that, there's probably so many more stories in these in-between years we don't get to see, we don't get to hear about. And, as a fan of not just the company but the technology, we really miss it, because what this show does, when it picks a moment, it picks a part of history to focus on, it covers it like no other. It is almost like an autobiography for a company. And I've just never really seen that done on the scale that this did. I'm just going to, once again, going back to, we get to see this stuff properly. It's not just them talking in their like internal film language. They're sort of like showing us and telling us. And, you've got legends such as like Phil Tippett, you've got Joe Johnston, John Knowles in there, Doug Chang, John Dykstra. There's so many people that contribute towards this documentary. It's just missing that continuation, which I guess is a selfish point, right? Because you want more, and it's a fantastic thing, leaves you wanting more. But if I'm going to kind of slowly start to wrap things up, because I hope this has been enough to tell you to go watch it. This is one of my favourite shows of the year so far. Yes, it's a documentary. Yes, it's okay covering Star Wars and all the blockbusters I enjoy. But it's just really interesting to see the industry from this angle, from a new angle. And again, a company's inception from the 70s up to being the powerhouse in the 20s. That's a story worth telling, and full credit to Lucasfilm for doing so. Lawrence Kasdan's involved with the production of this as well. It helps having someone so sort of in the Lucasfilm house doing so, because it just brings credibility, probably brings some of the people that have worked on it out of the shadows. And it just goes to reiterate, I'm just going to say his name once again, George Lucas, an absolute legend of the industry. What he has done for this industry can never, ever be undermined. And if you haven't rated him as director, if you've always thought, oh, he's overrated, he's this, please watch this series. Watch this series and come back to me and try and tell me that his influence on the industry is like no other. Oh, it was just lucky, it was Star Wars, or someone else saved him. It's incredible what he was able to do, what he was always pushing, and what he was trying to develop. He was literally moving forwards decades before you should even be able to do it. And it's because this documentary, people are going to see a new light to it. So, and that's going to do it for my review on Light and Magic. I hope you have enjoyed it. As I said, please watch it when you get the chance. It's an incredible watch, and I think it's one a lot of people are going to really enjoy. And if you are new to the channel, if you liked this video, we've covered a lot of films you'll see in the documentary. If you have seen the documentary, we're obviously running a Spielberg series at the moment, so we've been able to go through a lot of the films he's spoken about across the series, so you can check them out in our channel. We've got links to everything else in the description, our social medias, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, Twitter and Instagram @cinema_savvy, a link to Redbubble in that description below. And as I said, let me know your thoughts. I think this is going to be a big hit, but I want to hear from you all. So once again, thank you all for watching, and be sure to join us on the next one. Take care.